I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with a torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances to him. It's nice to be here. Kirtaneshvara finally dragged me out of my cave. I got married, and life's been really busy. So, but I want to thank you, Kirtaneshvara, for keeping this going. This is way more successful than when I managed the program. We used to have maybe half this.
10 years ago, right, when we started?
Somewhere around there. Yeah. So we'll chant an invocation. We want to welcome Ram Nam back. When did you get back, Prabhu? Oh, okay. Welcome home. So we'll do an invocation mantra. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, no matter, it's a universal principle of service. And I was thinking that this is like a servant's meeting. These are the, we put the deity in the center of our life. And so sometimes I think, the house is the servant's quarters, and the deity owns the house. And so when I go to the other room, I'm thinking, the servant's taking rest, and then to go back to the proprietor of the house, which is the Lord. So this principle of service, if you think about anybody who's revered in society, it's somebody who's giving, living to give. So this is actually, I want to discuss 4 different lessons from Krishna consciousness that have the potential to be life altering for us, to change the course of our life, the direction of our life. And the first one is that our very nature as souls is that we're meant for service. You think about it, this is relieving, because of the expectations that we may put on ourselves, or society puts on ourselves, to be successful in certain ways. We can breathe a sigh of relief that I'm simply meant for service. It's a simple principle, but it's very very significant, because there's so many different directions we can go in life. And when I was a kid, for instance, I wanted to be a professional athlete. And I think everybody has some sort of desire to be a great musician, or maybe the president of the United States, or to be a very rich person, to have riches, maybe. Right, yeah, or be a famous actor, or a famous hero. So you can all breathe, just let go of any need to be something other than a servant. So this is the first life-altering lesson. And the sweet exchanges of saintly people and devotees. There's one devotee in Sri Chaitanya's pastimes, and he was a merchant. He would sell banana leaves. In India, they oftentimes use their plates and their different bowls and whatnot from banana leaves. So he would sell banana leaves, and he would give half of what he made. He would give to the worship of the Lord. And so Sri Chaitanya, he would come and joke with him, and he would bargain with him. Give me something for half price. Or sometimes he would take something from him, like a banana. And this particular Brahmana, he he was extremely poor. He hardly owned anything. He lived in a thatched hut that had leaks in it, and he had a broken water pot. And so somebody asked him. They said, you worship the husband of the goddess of fortune. The husband of the goddess of fortune, Narayan, the supreme Lord. How come you're so poor? And so he made the statement that a bird traveling through, or an animal walking through, enjoys with their senses in the same way that the king enjoys. So what's the use of all this opulence? So through his sincerity and his humility and his simple life, he gave great pleasure to Sri Chaitanya, and they had a very intimate, loving exchange. So there's many examples of this type of thing. So let's see. So there's this one saying in India. They say it in India: "Yatumat patutat." There's so many destinations, so many paths, and that's true. But not all paths and not all destinations are equal. They have differences. So it's described in the Vedas and the Upanishads that there's different levels as we develop our consciousness. And one of the first level is anamoy. Anamoy means that I need something to eat. When a baby is born, that's the first thing they're thinking about is food. Where can I get food? And animals are mostly in this consciousness. It's just, I just need some food. Maybe you've seen the anteaters at the zoo, and they just walk back and forth constantly all day just looking for food. So this is an example of anamoy, so this rudimentary consciousness. And so this is described in these 5 different stages, how the development of consciousness. Pranamoy, next stage is like, I exist. Prana is breath. I exist, I live, I breathe, and there's others that live and breathe. And so this idea about, and this other rudimentary state is mostly about protection. It's kind of the fearing state. Protect myself from threats. So they the baby, for instance, takes shelter of the mother. Animals take shelter maybe under, in a tree, like a bird takes shelter in a tree, like this. So anamoy, pranamoy, and then the third stage is manamoy. Manamoy consciousness basically means you're starting to develop your mind and your intellect, and you can use that mind and intellect to engage in the world in a more significant way. So from the manamoy platform, you can begin to think about others and engage in service. You can engage like that. So we learn about the modes of nature in Krishna consciousness, the gunas, and sometimes we think about these gunas as something like external, like we have our mind and body, and then we have the gunas over here. But as we understand through Bhagavad Gita, descriptions of the gunas, that actually our bodies, our entire bodies and our minds are permeated by these gunas. The gunas run through us. And so if you think about, you have like a blender, and you put some fruit in and milk and different ingredients, and then it just sits there, right? But when you hit the switch, then it starts going in a certain cycle. So in the beginning of creation, Brahma, all the elements are there by the Lord, and then the gunas expand. And when the gunas begin, everything starts moving in a certain direction. So through the gunas, if we can raise ourselves to what's called the mode of goodness, or sattva gun, from this stage, it's like a springboard to begin to perform service. So that's a helpful state. That's not the end all, though, because now this is the second life altering lesson. So the first is I'm meant for service, and the other one is who should I serve? Like, who should I serve? And also realizing, everyone is serving. Even if we were talking about, say, like a famous musician or an actor or the president of the United States, every single one of these persons is serving in their different capacities. Even Lord Brahma, who's empowered as the creator of the universe, he's serving. He's said to be he's made of pure intelligence. His body is pure intelligence, and he's empowered to create the universe. So he's simply serving. And this particular person, he has his own planet. Okay, but he's simply serving. So who should I serve? Now we have to see what the result comes from serving. Like, for instance, like in the anamoi and the pranamoi, when we're simply trying to get food and satisfy our senses, it's said that these material senses are very cruel masters. They're very bad masters. Because what is a cruel master? If you render some service, first of all, they have no gratitude. These mind and senses have no gratitude, no matter how much you try to accumulate, right? No matter how much money you try to accumulate, your mind says, I want more. No matter how much pleasure you gain, the mind says, I want more. And so Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, never satisfied and burns like fire. So they're very cruel master of these senses. So Prabhupada talks about how we expand this propensity to our neighbors, to our society, and to the whole world in this way. What if I'm serving my senses and they're not satisfied, and I serve your senses, will you be satisfied? I'll gain some more satisfaction than you, but you also not be satisfied ultimately, right? It's the same concept of gratification of the senses. So in the sacred texts from India, the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, these texts, they talk about who we should serve. And Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, I'm the best friend of everyone. I'm your dearmost friend. And so by rendering service to me, you'll be completely satisfied. It's said in Bhagavatam. Yatma suprasidati. The Atma who you are, the soul who you are will be completely satisfied. So who should we serve? Okay, so then again, in different traditions, the understanding is there that you serve God, that you glorify God, right? And so there are different aspects of God. So as Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna is inviting you he's inviting you into his family, his intimate family. So you have God as a very great and awesome Narayan form, or these big Purusha forms. And God can expand unlimitedly. But you have God as a sweet child who's born in Vrindavan. And this particular aspect of God, he's inviting you into his intimate family circle. And it's very meaningful. Because I don't know if you ever had the experience where you're invited to somebody's home. Maybe you have some casual relationship with somebody, and then they invite you into their home. That's a new relationship is formed. You meet their family, right? So that's what Krishna is doing in this very sweet form, very intimate form, where you actually forget that he's God, and you ultimately fall in love with this supreme person. Krishna is said to have qualities that other expansions of God don't have. One of those qualities is he's the best musician. Krishna's a famous musician. He has many different varieties of flutes, and whenever he plays on his flute, he enchants the living entities. He's pleasing his friends and his whole community through his flute playing. So the devas from heaven want to come and hear. It's so wonderful. They have the most heavenly music. The demigod, the devas have the most heavenly music, but they want to hear Krishna play his flute. So this is one unique aspect of Krishna. Another is his unparalleled beauty. God is beautiful whenever the Supreme Lord expands. He's a source of beauty. But Krishna, the person Krishna, has unparalleled beauty. So there's descriptions of Krishna's beauty, again, in the Srimad Bhagavatam and the sacred texts. There's a lot of description. It's said that you can't actually describe Krishna's form through a material description, but his eyes are said to be like lotus flowers, like lotus petals. and he has a peacock feather in his hair. He has beautiful blackish hair. He has a peacock feather, and that's said to be like a rainbow in the sky. It's supposed to look like the rainbow in the sky. He has a sesame bud nose and jasmine white bud teeth, and his cheeks are said to look like full moons. His forehead is said to look like a half moon, and he has shark-shaped earrings, and he has a Kastuba jewel, a beautiful jewel he wears, and he has a pearl necklace, and these pearls, they look like swans flying in the blue sky, because Krishna's complexion is said to be like a fresh rain cloud. So again, there's indescribable beauty of Krishna, and this is another one of the unique aspects. Another one is the loving relationships with his devotees are unparalleled. Do people have love for God in different ways? Oftentimes they're requesting something from God as a business exchange, but the relationship with the residents of Vrindavan, again, this very intimate community that we were talking about, it's unparalleled. These devotees are always entranced, thinking about their dear Krishna, and it's described in the Bhagavatam, the 10th canto, as Krishna is describe his life, how he progresses in age. How at one point he's laying on his back as a little baby in the house, and at another point he turns and he starts crawling around the house and playing with his brother Balaram, and then at a certain point, maybe he's around 3 years old or so, he begins creating mischief in the community. And he does this to increase the love of his devotees. So maybe you've had little children in your life, a little like 2 or 3 year old running around creating mischief. You ever experienced that? It's pretty cute. So Krishna, he does that, and he's constantly causing mischief, but he's doing so. He's increasing the love and affection of the residents of Vrindavan, his community. And so they're although externally they seem angry, they're actually internally extremely joyful as their affection for Krishna increases. Do you want to hear about some of the things that he does, his mischief making? So he just imagine again, he's like a little 3-year-old. So this point, before that, he was with his brother Balaram in the house, but when he got to the point where he could walk, then he was playing with his other cowherd boyfriends. At that point, they weren't old enough to take responsibility for the calves. So at this point, they're just running around creating trouble. And so oftentimes what they would do is they would release the calves from their ropes. Before the cowherd men had a chance to milk the cows, they would release the calves from the ropes. And so the cows being thirsty would go and drink all the milk before the cowherd men could get to them. Another things they do when they did release the calves is they would hold on to their tails of the calves, and the calves would pull them around in the mud and they'd get all dirty. So that was another one. And so what happened, this is described in Krishna book. How many of you have Krishna book? Does anybody not have Krishna book? 1, 2, you? 3? Anybody else? 4? Okay, I want to give you all a Krishna book tonight. That's a gift from me. Ethan will, before you leave, Ethan will get Krishna book for you. So this is described in the eighth chapter of Krishna book. So the mothers of the cowherd boys, the little boys, they're coming to complain to Mother Yashoda because the little boys are creating so much mischief. And so they say, these boys are always devising plans to break into our houses. And they do it with the monkeys. They do it in correspondence with the monkeys. So they're like teams. So like Krishna has a little monkey named Dadi Lobe. Dadi means like yogurt, and Lobe means to be greedy for yogurt. So he has a little monkey, and so the monkey will go in and create a distraction in one part of the house, and then the cowherd boys would sneak in another door, and then they would steal the butter and yogurt. So they would eat it themselves, and then they would distribute it to the monkeys. The monkeys would come and so when the monkeys were full, they didn't just leave. They said, because the monkeys wouldn't take the yogurt anymore. So they said, this is useless. So then they broke the butter pots, and then they would put it all over the floor, create a big mess, and then they would leave. So the cowherd women were complaining to Mother Yashoda, and so she said, well, why don't you go hide it? He said, we tried to hide it. It just simply doesn't work, because Krishna and Balaram, they have these effulgent jewels on their body. So wherever they go, even if we put it in the dark, somehow they find it. And so Mother Yashoda said, well, then I'll remove the jewels. And then they said, that doesn't work either. Don't remove the jewels, because they emanate an effulgence from their bodies. So they're going to find it either way. So she said, well, hide your butter. They said, well, they come into the house. If they can't find it, they put planks on grinding stones. They climb up on top of these. They find it somehow. They steal it, or if they can't reach it, they'll puncture a hole in the bottom so it all comes out. And sometimes, even if they can't find it, they're not able to find it, they get angry, and then they pee all over our house. And they pinch the little girl's cheeks, and they run away. And so Krishna Buddha gives a vivid description of how Krishna and his boyfriends are creating mischief in the community. But when they're giving these complaints, Krishna is looking completely innocent, sitting there looking completely innocent, and looking so sweet and loving that their love and affection are growing. See, sometimes they would call Krishna a thief. Krishna says, "I'm not a thief. You're a thief." In these different ways. So this is another. So who should we serve? I'm a servant. Who should we serve? And Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita, surrender and loving service to me. Through serving me, you'll be completely satisfied. See, that's the difference. Is when we serve our senses, we get some temporary gratification. But when we expand our service desire to others, then we go out and we create welfare programs. We do philanthropic efforts. We try to save the whales. We try to save the planet, to sustainability programs, all these type of things. But still, it doesn't actually ultimately help. But the difference is when we serve Krishna, when we serve God, when we give our heart to Krishna, we can satisfy everybody through that service. That's the difference. Everybody becomes satisfied through that service. Have you noticed how people become extremely happy when a saintly person comes in their midst? Have you ever been in the company of a saintly person? Someone who has these qualities of love of God, devoted service to God. It makes you very happy. It makes you feel because they have this inner love. They have this inner joy within their heart. So it satisfies us. So it's like watering the root of the tree. When we serve Krishna, we become happy. So life-altering teachings. I'm meant for service. Everybody's serving. I'm serving no matter what. If I decide to not serve God, I'm still serving. But that service won't bring satisfaction. So who should I serve? Krishna. If I serve the most intimate form of God as Krishna, I can find this supreme happiness that these cowherd women, boys, these residents of Vrindavan are experiencing. So we were discussing how when you love somebody, maybe a couple of weeks ago, you want to understand what is important to them. So we make a determination. I want to serve God. I want to serve Krishna. Then how do we serve them? How do we please them? Maybe you're all familiar with the 5 languages of love. There's a book by a Baptist minister. I think it came out in the 80s. It's called The Five Love Languages. And so the idea of that book is you're trying to get to know your beloved and what speaks to them the most, what's important to them. You're entering that loving relationship, what's important to them. And so we want to understand, we want to develop an understanding of what Krishna's love languages are. Okay, what we're meant to serve and love God. So what is his love languages? So he's telling us through his representative how we can serve him. And in this age of Kali, now we were talking about the modes of nature, how we're influenced by the modes of nature, and how from the platform of mode of goodness, it's a springboard for spiritual life, for real spiritual life. And so Gurudev made a post recently to always beware of the modes of nature. And I was reading through these descriptions from the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and I was recognizing how prominent the modes of passion and ignorance are coursing through my own body. How the modes of passion and ignorance are so prominent. It said that basically this whole age of Kali is predominated by the modes of passion and ignorance. So to beware of these modes. So I'll just briefly read these, just because this is a way that we can consider how to serve Krishna in our current situation, given our current vessel that we have. How can we serve? So this is what we're dealing with. Yeah. So this is mind and sense control, tolerance, discrimination, sticking to one's prescribed duty, truthfulness, mercy, careful study of the past and future, satisfaction in any condition, generosity, renunciation of sense gratification, faith in the spiritual master, being embarrassed at improper action, charity, simplicity, humbleness, satisfaction within oneself are qualities of the mode of goodness. Those sound wonderful. Unfortunately, my body's not composed of those things so much. Material desire, great endeavor, audacity, dissatisfaction even in gain, false pride, praying for material advancement, considering oneself different and better than others, sense gratification, rash eagerness to fight, a fondness for hearing oneself praised, the tendency to ridicule others, advertising one's own prowess and justifying one's actions by one's strength are qualities of the mode of passion. Can any of you, I won't ask. I can relate to some of those.
Oh, goodness, was Ethan. I was in
Yeah. Intolerant anger, stinginess, speaking without scriptural authority, violent hatred, living as a parasite, hypocrisy, chronic fatigue, quarrel, lamentation, delusion, unhappiness, depression, sleeping too much, false expectations, fear, and laziness constitute the major qualities of the mode of ignorance. So these combine, again, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, they're always fighting for supremacy. But the vessel that we're generally in Kali Yuga, unless in your many of you probably in your previous life made spiritual advancement. So many of you probably already have some of the mode of goodness. But many of us are dealing with a body that coursing through this body is passion and ignorance. Okay? That's the tool we're dealing with. So because of that, Sri Chaitanya, the golden avatar, the Supreme Lord who comes in this age to give pure love of God in the mood of Vrindavan. Okay, he said Patita Pavana. He's given the highest to the lowest. So Krishna said to be Karuna Sindhu, an ocean of mercy. So this is his display of mercy in Kali Yuga. Us that are very much engrossed in these lower modes, which are nothing but suffering. Some happiness and passion, but it ends in suffering. Mode of ignorance is nothing but suffering. So because of that, he's saying, this is how you can serve me. This is how you can love me. You simply chant this 16-word mantra. There are 32 syllables. You simply chant this, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. You simply chant this, and you will attain, through that process, chant congregationally, chant together like we were doing. Kirtaneshwara led the beautiful kirtan. And you will attain love of God. And that's not, it's enough when the blissful, golden, beautiful avatar Sri Chaitanya, it's enough when he says it. But throughout the Vedic literatures, actually other religious traditions all over the world talk about the importance of chanting God's names. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, it said, Kaler dosha nide rajan, astihi eko mahanguna, kirtanad eva krishnasya mukta sangha parambajet. Kali Yuga, Kaler dosha nide rajan. Kali Yuga is an ocean of faults. Astihi eko, there's one good quality. Astihi eko mahaguna, great quality. Kirtanad eva krishnasya. By chanting this congregational chanting of Krishna's names, mukta sangha parambrajet. You can be free from the bondage of these lower modes of nature, this material energy, this place of suffering, and attain the highest destination. That's the great quality about Kali Yuga. There's no other good qualities, just that quality. And there's another section of Bhagavatam where Bali Maharaj surrenders everything to the Supreme Lord. Supreme Lord, as the dwarf Brahmana, Vamana Dev, he asked for 3 steps. That was his only request. And so he, knowing that the Lord was going to take everything from him, he still gave him the 3 steps. So the Lord first stepped across the whole universe, and then he stepped across the whole spiritual world. I don't even know. He made 2 giant steps. And so the 3rd step, Bali Maharaj said, you can put that step on my head. So Bali Maharaj he surrendered everything to the Lord. So Bali Maharaj was performing a Vedic sacrifice prior to this to please the Lord. And Lord Vishnu, after this surrender, was asking Sukracharya, who is the priest, what was his faults in the sacrifice? You need to complete this yajna. There's faults there. And Sukracharya made this statement, mantratas tantratas trijam, desha kalarha vastuta, sarva karoti nishtijam, anu sankirtana tava. That there may be discrepancies in the chanting of the mantras. Because in the Vedic system, everything has to be very precise. Mantratas, tantratas. There may be discrepancies in the procedure, tantra. Mantratas, tantratas, chidram, desa, kalarha vastutaha. There may be discrepancies in the time, place, and paraphernalia. Sarva karoti nishchidram. All the discrepancies are eliminated. Anu sankirtanatava, by chanting your holy name. And so he spoke to the fact of what all the scriptures, all the great sages are saying. That simply by chanting the Lord's name, even though there's all these difficulties and nasty elements in Kali Yuga, that everything becomes perfect. Although the time for surrendering to God is a difficult one, everything becomes perfect by chanting your holy name. So how to render service? Harinam, Harinam, Harinam eva kevalam. There's no other way than chanting the holy names. This is in the Brihan, I believe the Brihan Naradiya Purana. And there's many more. It's throughout the Vedas, this is said. So we have this discount bargain in Kali Yuga that to attain love of God, which is in previous ages is extremely difficult. It's extremely difficult to, if you want the best thing, say you want the nicest car, right? What's the most expensive car in the market? I don't know. Does anybody know? Is that how much does that cost? Does anybody know how much that costs about? 2 million. What is that? Okay, so 2 million. So if you want the best thing, you have to spend the most, right? You have to sacrifice the most. So if you want complete liberation from material energy, and you want union with God in the kingdom of God, you want freedom from the bondage of this world, you have to pay, right? You have to pay the most. You have to give the most. And so Krishna is saying, you don't have to do all these rigorous austerities that had to be done in Satya Yuga. You don't have to do these huge Vedic sacrifices with all these paraphernalia for many, many years, sitting in front of a fire and chanting mantras for years on end. You don't have to do these things. You can reach the highest destination simply by accepting this process of connecting with me. You just take this simple process, chanting, dancing. Lord Chaitanya gave the example, chanting, dancing, and feasting. Krishna Prasadam. So anybody can do that. And that's what we're trying to give to the whole world. We're not a sectarian movement. We want everybody to draw closer to God. So it doesn't matter if you're from Christianity, Buddhism, Muslim, Hindu, all these, we simply want everybody to draw closer to the Supreme Lord, because that will ultimately give the soul who you are happiness. Did everybody get their Krishna book? Well, I want to make sure everybody gets it before. Some people have to leave sometimes. So then we understand that us as a soul, as an Atma, Jivera Svarupoi Krishnara Nityadas, we're meant for service. Right? We understand who to serve God. Why not as Krishna? You can get closest to God when you serve Krishna. We know how to serve. All the Vedic literatures, all the spiritual masters are saying, even in Christianity, hallowed be thy name. Everybody's saying, chant the sacred name of God. Now, what's the result? What's the result of this service? What's the ultimate result? What do we gain from that? Yeah, in love. That Srila Prabhupada's guru, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, said, a life without love is useless and poor, they say. So engage me in service with love as my pay. But we don't, Kolavecha Sridhar, when he was bargaining discounted price for his banana leaves with Sri Chaitanya, what did he get from it? He lived in a thatched hut. It had half a roof missing. He had love. He had that love that we all want, fully manifested. That's the result of this. And that doesn't matter. Again, time, place, it doesn't matter. Even what body, what planet you're on. When you have that love awakened within you for the Supreme, there's so many stories of devotees, the Russian devotees, for instance, in prison, simply chanting, dancing, and preaching the message to their jailers and their inmates. No matter what the circumstance, whether in fame or infamy, whether in wealth or poverty. And what happens when we get closer to Krishna in this way is we begin to see things differently. Like one day we may come in this room and we see this beautiful picture of Lord Chaitanya, Sri Nityananda, Gadadhar, Dvaita, Srivas, and all the devotees. We may say that, and we may cry tears of joy. When that love awakens, you see something different. Just like you may initially see a photo of your spouse before you meet them. And then later on in life, after you spend 30 years with them, you may look at it and you have a different feeling when you look at that picture 30 years later after spending your life together, right? So as that love develops, when you hear a simple thing, you hear a pastime of the Lord, you hear the Lord's name, love will well up in your heart. There's these blissful emotions. And the thing is, the highest ecstatic emotions are possible in that relationship with the Supreme, because the soul is meant to have that loving relationship with the Supreme. And that relationship can give the highest pleasure over any other relationship. So there was one story about a devotee named Daruka who was fanning the body of the Lord, and he started feeling ecstasy, and tears started coming from his eyes. But he got angry at the ecstasy because it was hindering his service. So then I was thinking, why do we want ecstasy if it could hinder our service? And it came to me, it was through Krishna's mercy, it came to me an understanding. You probably all already understand it, but it came to me that we can serve better when we have that ecstasy. We can please the beloved more. It's just like, again, in the example of giving a gift. If I give a gift to Eric and I have no love in my heart, then it doesn't mean so much. But what if I gave you a gift and I'm feeling full love for you in my heart? What's the difference? It means more, right? So when you develop that bliss and ecstasy, it increases your ability to please the Lord. So I said there's a competition of bliss between the Lord and the devotees, because the Lord, seeing the devotees' happiness, becomes more happy in service. Okay, so I have one poem that I wrote that's also like a prayer to become the Lord's devotee. And when we become a devotee, it means we're dedicated to serving them and developing our love for them. So if I could, I'd like to read you this. Maybe you can all meditate on it in the sense of a prayer to the Lord to become his loving devotee. Okay. Perfect knowledge rests in you, dear Lord. Nothing is stopping you from doing as you like. So when you see my fight, sweet Lord, when you see my fight, lift the coverings of illusion from my tarnished sight. Perfect beauty comes from you, dear Lord. All emanations are relishable and intoxicating delight. So when you see my struggle to see you, sweet Lord, lift the barriers that cloud your brilliant light. All power and strength rests in you, dear Lord. No one can resist your unbreakable might. So when you see me trying, yet drowning, sweet Lord, pick me up from my miserable plummeting plight. Your fame and prominence know no bounds, no, dear Lord. The echoes of your limitless glories are chanted far and wide. So when I call out to you from the depths of my heart, sweet Lord, rescue me destitute from the wayside. Everything in creation is your property, dear Lord. You're the master of mystical wealth, wizardry. As I strive for diamonds beyond earthly values, sweet Lord, appear in my heart, the only benediction for me. You are fully satisfied within yourself, dear Lord, yet you love your devotees and do anything for them. So weeping, let me be your devotee, sweet Lord, then my heart to your heart I'll quickly ascend. So I want to open it up to any questions or comments.
Who was it that said that the ecstasy was getting in the way of his service?
Daruka.
Govinda.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. I don't know so many details about him, but that's the one pastime that was described. So, yep.
Earlier you spoke about like glorifying God, and it's not exactly clear to me. God already has everything, so what benefit is it to glorify him? Why is this such a big part of our?
Because Krishna values your personal relationship. He values you personally as a spirit soul. And as you glorify him, you are connecting with him personally and developing that relationship. So when the Lord comes here, the pastime of the Lord coming here is he's allowing the spiritual world to expand through bringing souls here to the spiritual world. And so you're part of it. You're part of the Lord, the expansion of the Lord's bliss, your personal relationship. So that's meaningful. Sure. Yes.
Because Krishna created
Well, because God, Krishna, created and sustains everything, is that considered a pastime? Like just existence, like so?
Yeah, it is. The whole material world is a pastime of the Lord, actually. Yeah. So, and we're experiencing that pastime. You know, the only difference is again the cloud of ignorance over our consciousness. Okay, the Lord's always performing pastimes in this material world, and he's this is always going on, and then the awakening, the enlightenment, you become aware of it. That's the difference. Sure. Yes.
What would you say about all the nastiness in the world and what the Lord has to do with that?
I'm glad you brought that up because I meant to talk about that earlier. I was hearing Indra Dumna Swami speak, and there's 7 principles because this Kali Yuga we're in is like a burning fire. So there's 7 principles that make the Kali Yuga bearable. Otherwise, it would be completely unbearable. We wouldn't be able to even survive. And those 7 principles are the cows. Cows are completely in the mode of goodness, and they're always giving too. Cows are always, everything the cow comes from the cow is a gift, actually. The cows, the brahmanas. Brahmanas are, their quality is as that they're always studying the Vedas, studying the Lord's words. And one of their qualities too is giving in charity and worshiping the deity, form of the Lord, and teaching others the Vedas and teaching others to worship the deity of the Lord. These are some qualities of the brahmanas. So, and then the Vedas themselves, the Vedas, again, this eternal knowledge that is coming from the Lord through the disciplic succession. So the Vedas, chaste women or men, truthful people, those who renounce worldly things for a higher purpose, tyagis, and the last one. What's the last one? Charitable people. So charitable people. So, you know, these when we offer kindness is one of the best qualities you can have that give you the ability to develop in spiritual life. Kindness is very essential. You all heard the story of King Yudhisthira and the dog. I think I told this before.
Say it again.
From the Mahabharata. So King Yudhisthira is going to leave this world, and actually all the Pandavas are going to go back to heaven. And so King Yudhisthira is also known as Dharmaraj. Dharma means the right path, or knowing what to do within God's creation in the proper way. So there's different tests that are given to Yudhisthira, and because Yudhisthira passed all these tests, he's known as Dharmaraj, the king of Dharma. He knows everything about what's right and what's wrong. So one particular test is they're going off to the Himalayas to leave this world, to go on to their next destination. And a dog accompanies him on the journey. And so when he reaches, all the other Pandavas leave their bodies and go back to heaven, Svargaloka. And it comes to the point where King Yudhisthira is also going to leave his body. At some point. So it comes to the point where he's going to leave his body. Thank you. And so Indra comes in the chariot and tells him he may board the chariot to go to heaven, but he can't come with the dog. The dog can't come with him because the dog's dirty and, you know, the dog can't go to heaven. So Yudhisthira, he refuses to board the chariot to go to the heavenly planet unless the dog can come with him. And so through this act, the dog then revealed itself as actually being Yamaraj. Yamaraj had taken the shape of the dog. Again, this is another test. And so Yamaraj very enthusiastic, very emphatically said, you passed this test. And he instructed him, he said, one act of kindness is better than 1,000 ceremonies. So Dharmaraj, so Yamaraj, you can say Yamaraj is basically like the high court judge of the material world. Or he's like the best lawyer in the material world. He knows everything about the law books. Like he knows about how the material energy works and how karma works. So he is saying that one act of kindness is better than 1,000 ceremonies. So you can see how kindness could simply be a material kindness, but what that does is that is again a springboard for us to develop our spiritual life. If that kindness that we develop is transferred to Krishna and the devotees, that kindness leads to our liberation ultimately. So thank you. You're a very kind person.
Thank you. You need some water.
Maybe, yeah, that'll be nice. Thank you. Hey, Omar.
Can we ever be like perfect or fully self-realized while in the material world?
Yes. Yeah, because this is ultimately the energy of God too. These bodies. So through that surrendering process, the Guru to the spiritual master and Krishna, and to the degree we accept that and we surrender to the Lord. Hare Krishna, Nahari. Hare Krishna, Shivakari. Have a good night. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Through that process, it said like you put a metal rod in a fire, and that metal rod becomes like fire. So you take on the same spiritual quality, even though in this body. Mutta Vairagya Uchite. It's said in the nectar of devotion. So, Hare Krishna, Jumana.
Is it like common to like become perfect, like fully self-realized?
It's not very common, but by the mercy of Guru and Krishna, it's become more common. It's just again.
And you don't have to become perfect while in the material world in order to like pass it and die. Transcend birth and death. Or do you have to be perfect in order to like transcend birth and death?
If you're remembering Krishna, if your main attachment at the time of death is Krishna, then Krishna says you'll attain him. So Krishna says whatever state of being you remember when you quit your body, that state you'll attain without fail. So sometimes Krishna is merciful too. There's Nitya Siddha, there's eternally liberated souls. There's Sadhana Siddha, and that's when we surrender to the process of sadhana bhakti, and we regain our perfection that way by following the Guru's instructions, by taking the spiritual practice every day, and developing that yoga bhakti yoga lifestyle. And then there's Kripa Siddha. Kripa Siddha is when someone becomes perfect through mercy, right? So sometimes there can be a mix of sadhana and Kripa Siddha. Oftentimes that's the case. So we do the best we can. Krishna says, those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give them the understanding by which they can come to me. And Krishna says, those who worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, for then I might carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. So ultimately, we want to do the best we can, but Krishna is very merciful. So, all right. Do you have anything else? Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thanks for the nice class.
Thank you,
Not
Prabhu.
very silly question actually. I mean, that's why I was
Krishna's kind of silly too. So.
What did you ask? Like Pandavas, they were the devotee of Krishna, so why didn't they go to the Krishna's abode instead of going to heaven?
This is also, it's also their pastimes. So, we don't know. Ultimately, like I said, there Arjuna is a completely liberated soul. Most of these devotees that came and incarnated with Krishna are liberated souls. So they're performing different pastimes in the material world. So everything involved with Krishna is Leela. If you happen to be with Krishna in his pastimes, you're part of Leela. So, Hare Krishna. All right. Do you have anything more before we wrap it up?
Look, everybody. yet.
I hope that you treasure this Krishna book, because it's some of the most confidential truth about God and existence. And it was given by Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada was a giver. He gave everything to give us this knowledge. And he actually said, I came here to give. He said, others come to your country because they think America has everything and I want to become rich and successful and happy like the Americans. But I haven't come here to take anything. I've simply come here to give. So Prabhupada, he spent the last of his years, his 12, 13 years on the planet, simply serving us and giving us this knowledge. And this book is coming through his heartfelt endeavor to impregnate Krishna into our heart and to share this love that he has. Because if you read about Krishna, say on Wikipedia, if you pull up and read about Krishna on Wikipedia versus reading the Krishna book, you're going to have there's going to be a different experience on the consciousness. Okay? Because it's not simply the external words, it's a transference of love from a devotee unto the heart of the conditioned soul, as opposed to someone just intellectually thinking they're understanding and putting something on the internet. Yes.
So you think it's different between perhaps some historian just writing the intellectual facts about Krishna on Wikipedia versus someone intentionally, like for example, Prabhupada intentionally writing something on writing this? There's a different form of energy that you read from it? Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, absolutely. Because this is an open secret. Krishna says, Raja Vidya Raja Guyam. Raja Guyam means it's hidden. Guya means heart. Raja Vidya is a king of knowledge, and it's the secret of all secrets. So where is the secret held? If you take a historian's version of, say, the Mahabharata, because there's no bhakti there, this wasn't written down by somebody who had love in their hearts for God. Because of that, you can gain the opposite result. But if you hear from somebody, this is the way that bhakti is transmitted. Bhakti is only transmitted from somebody that has bhakti. That's Krishna's secret. So just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you as they have seen the truth. So it's a completely different experience. And actually, if we hear from those who don't have love for God developed in their heart, they try to take a mundane scientific approach, it can actually have the opposite effect. So this book is very much infused with love. It's from somebody who gave everything to the service of God, despite all discomforts. You read Leela Amrita, read his biography, and you'll see how much trouble and difficulty he went through to give us this knowledge. So, all right, well, we'll wrap it up. Okay. Thank you all very much for being here. All right, Krishna, thank you all so much. Maybe you can drag me out of my cave more often so I can